Hello, I'm James Ezimoha. Welcome to Africa News. Let's see your headlines. Officials say at least 4 people have been killed following heavy rains in Tunisia. United Nations says more than 500,000 people are at risk of displacement amid flooding in Mozambique. And dozens of worshippers have been abducted by gunmen in northern Nigeria, deepening fears of insecurity in the region. Armed gunmen have abducted dozens of worshippers from 2 churches in northern Nigeria's Kaduna state during Sunday services. The attacks come amid renewed international scrutiny over insecurity as Nigerian authorities deny claims of religious persecution and say criminal gangs target both Christians and Muslims.
Carry them away.
That was Doga Yohana, who fled as armed gunmen stormed 2 churches in northern Nigeria during Sunday services. The attackers took dozens of worshippers from the Evangelical Church Winning All and the Alberika Cherubim and Seraphim Movement Church in Kaduna State.
I was there. I ran away because I saw them. I was very, very afraid for seeing them. They gathered all the people, both the 2 churches, and then carried them away. That was what I saw.
Another witness, Idris Madami, said he escaped the attackers, but about 20 members of his family were taken. He has not heard from them since.
When they came, they kidnapped my 2 wives and 3 children. Also, 2 of my brothers that have 3 children, each are among those kidnapped. We have almost 20 victims just within our extended family that have been kidnapped.
The kidnappings are the latest mass abductions in Nigeria. That's as the country is under scrutiny from U.S. President Donald Trump over the alleged persecution of Christians. On Christmas Day, Trump launched an airstrike in the northwest of the country, saying the U.S. would, quote, not allow radical Islamic terrorism to prosper. Nigeria's government denies any systematic persecution of Christians. It said it is battling Islamist militants and criminal gangs who abduct both Muslims and Christians, often for ransom.
The United Nations has warned that severe flooding in Mozambique has triggered a humanitarian crisis affecting around 500,000 people. Heavy rains have devastated the southeastern African country and its neighbor, South Africa, for several weeks, resulting in the loss of at least 150 lives. Isaac Lucando has more.
The United Nations is warning that flood caused by prolonged rains in Mozambique could lead to disease outbreaks, rising malnutrition, and allow wildlife, including crocodiles, to enter flooded urban areas. Gaza and Maputo, 2 southern provinces in Mozambique, have been among the hardest hit by heavy rainfall in recent days. The UN Humanitarian Coordination Office, OCHA, reports that nearly 5,000 kilometers of roads have been compromised across 9 provinces, including the primary highway linking the capital Maputo to other parts of the nation. It also states that roughly 50,000 individuals have been displaced and are presently residing in temporary housing. UNICEF paints an even more dire picture, with preliminary data suggesting that 500,000 people have been affected by flooding, half of them children. The agency warns that with about 40% of children in Mozambique already suffering from severe malnutrition, the floods have placed children at an even greater risk. UNICEF says many could now face acute malnutrition due to fresh disruptions to food supplies and health services. Amid the worsening situation, Mozambique's President Daniel Chapo has cancelled his planned trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos. Mozambique will soon enter its annual cyclone season as worries mount about the long road to recovery ahead in a country that is already severely impacted by climate change. Isaac Lucando for A News in Dar es Salaam.
At least 4 people have been killed as severe flooding swept across parts of Tunisia following unusually heavy rainfall. Authorities say the downpours, among the worst in decades, inundated streets, disrupted daily life, and raised fears the death toll could rise.
Flash floods triggered by torrential rain swept through multiple regions of northern Tunisia on Tuesday. submerging vehicles, cutting off neighbourhoods and forcing school closures in several cities, including Tunis, Nablus and Sousse. Meteorological officials say rainfall levels in some areas were the heaviest recorded since 1950, overwhelming drainage systems and emergency services already struggling to cope with extreme weather events. Residents say poor infrastructure worsened the impact of the flooding.
Glory be to God, we cannot control the weather. Weather is governed by God, although we as humans do have a role in it because of climate change. Tunisia rarely experiences such torrential rain. Each time this happens, the drains that should be cleaned every year are blocked, and that is why these floods occur.
We always welcome rain in Tunisia. We need it for dams and for everything. But the infrastructure, as usual, is always the same problem. There are well-known areas that have not been properly taken care of. You look at the situation and even someone who just wants to go to work, go home, or carry out daily activities ends up completely blocked. So we can't work, and there is a lot of damage to our economy.
Authorities say emergency teams remain on high alert as floodwaters recede, while damage assessments continue across affected regions.
Large parts of Somalia are facing an acute water crisis after nearly 2 years of failed rainy seasons. As the wells dry up and prices rise, women and children spend hours searching for water, while drought devastates livestock and rural livelihoods.
Access to water here in Somalia has become a daily struggle, especially in rural areas where available water sources are extremely limited.
Both people and livestock have been severely affected by the lack of water caused by the drought. We have not seen rain for the past 2 years. Most of the wells have dried up, and there is an urgent need to rehabilitate existing boreholes.
The worsening drought situation is alarming. Livestock continue to die every day due to water and pasture shortages. Many pastoralists say they can no longer afford water trucks, leaving both their families and animals at risk.
The livestock are very weak because there is no water and no pasture. Both people and animals depend on this single well. Even when water trucks come, the water is still not enough.
Local authorities warn that water scarcity is creating serious public health risks, compounded by the sharp rise in water prices charged by vendors supplying the few remaining sources.
Water shortages are among the biggest challenges we are facing. A drum of water that used to cost between $1.5 and $2 now costs $3 to $4. A water truck that previously cost $45 now costs between $70 and $80. Some of the available water is not safe for human consumption, posing serious health risks, but many people cannot find clean water.
Somalia's Disaster Management Agency warns the situation could get even worse, as weather forecast predicts below average rainfall for the upcoming season.
Lesotho's vital textile industry is under strain after the United States imposed new tariffs and ended duty-free access for its imports. Factory managers say orders have dropped sharply, forcing production cuts and large-scale layoffs, the country's biggest export sector.
Garment factories in Lesotho are cutting production and jobs after losing preferential access to the U.S. market. Factory managers say orders fell sharply after U.S. tariffs were imposed and duty-free access under the African Growth and Opportunity Act ended. One factory operating for more than a decade says it previously produced about 500,000 garments a month, mainly for export to the U.S. and South Africa. That figure has since dropped to around 100,000, with the company laying off more than 1,000 workers.
Some of the factories have got to go what they call short time. 1,000 will work for 2 weeks, the other another 1,000 will work another 2 weeks. That now means they are getting a reduced pay, which is already very, very, very small.
The U.S. later reduced the tariff rate from the initial 50% to 15%, But the expiry of their AGOA means exports now face additional duties. Officials say combined tariffs on some products exceeded 40%.
It is very important for us to have the import and export production, because it really helps us to have the job. So if we don't have the exports, then it is very difficult for us to continue or run the factory. It really affects our production, and not only our production, but even the economic of the country.
At another factory, managers say suppliers have suspended fabric deliveries for US-bound orders, forcing about 200 workers to stay home.
Because we no longer have orders due to those high rates of tariffs. There are no orders. So those raises in the tariffs has really affected us economically and socially.
Textiles are Lesotho's largest export sector and employer. Industry officials say the impact of the tariffs is expected to continue in the months ahead.
Now to sports. Senegal's Africa Cup of Nations winners have received a hero's welcome in Dakar after their dramatic final victory over hosts Morocco. Players and staff rode through the capital on an open-top bus and were greeted by deafening cheers as the country celebrated a moment of national unity following the historic triumph. The city tour culminated at the Presidential Palace, where supporters gathered in the heart of downtown Dakar to witness the official reception. But that's all we have today in African News. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to Air News.